All right. Testing one, two, three. All right, we good. We good. All right, everybody can hear now. Yeah, somebody let me know in the chat if y'all can hear. I'm coming behind. I'm coming up here for Red Solo Cup. I'm all late to get started, but we are going to dive in today. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you're watching this, it's a good possibility you should be expecting snow if you anywhere up and down the East Coast. So hopefully everybody's warm, safe, in a good place. My name is Marcus. I still got my headsets in from earlier. I was like, why I sound blurry? My name is Marcus. I'm the debt free dad. And on this channel, we do attorney reactions to news, current events, trending topics, and all of that good stuff. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, this video is going to be interesting because we're going to talk about some beef. We're going to talk about some internet beef. We're actually not going to talk about the beef per se. We're going to talk about, is there any legal exposure from the results of the beef? And we're going to go through analysis. We're going to look at some California criminal statutes, and we're going to look at some California criminal statutes, and we're going to take a look at some California civil statutes to kind of break this down. Nah, it's something healthy though. It's orange juice. I got a lot of alcohol from a lot of places I've been, but I don't even really drink like that. So like when I get alcohol, it stay in my bar forever. But okay. In any event, hey, shout out to you too. Hopefully everything is going on well with you, sis. All right. So before we dive into what's going on with Anton Daniels and Corey Holcomb, I would like to actually start out this video to say I actually am a supporter of, or have supported, each of the persons involved in this. Corey Holcomb is probably the comedian who I have seen live the most. I think the first time I saw him live was probably 2008 or 2007. I know I was in law school. They were performing at the undergraduate campus in a auditorium, arena, whatever it's called. And I want to say Kevin Hart was the headliner and he was on that show. But I probably seen Corey Holcomb live between DC, North Carolina, all over. I probably seen him live maybe 5 times. Always hilarious, has a nuanced perspective on comedy. I've been watching the 5150 show since Zoe Williams and Kagan water was being sold. I think when I was maybe 2010. I specifically remembering it at my first job. I remember listening to it while I was in my office. So been a big time supporter of Corey Holcomb. I like his comedy. I've actually went out though with people who wasn't too fond of his comedy. He made an abortion joke that was hilarious, but some people didn't find it hilarious, but that's neither here nor there. Now, Anton Daniels, I have watched his YouTube content before. I watched his YouTube content. I actually briefly joined his Patreon. I just recently canceled it because I wanted to see, hey, what is his Patreon all about? What game is he getting there? I found that it did have some value for the purposes that I was watching it. I think he's actually very good content creator, and he has a segment on his Patreon where he kind of gives out gems and games as it relates to content creation. So I have supported both people on this side. Now, y'all probably, if y'all watching this video, y'all probably know what happened. I'm not going to play the video of a 60-year-old guy and a guy who's probably 44, 45, somewhere around my age about the fight because I'm just not going to play it. But I will show you, let's take a quick look just at all the videos that pop up on YouTube when you do a search for these guys' names. Let's just look. All these videos that pop up. It's all your wife, your kids, everybody reacting, heated debate. Everybody's reacting, chiming in. So it's clearly a lot of stuff going on. So let me give the background before we break down the legal nuances. So Anton Daniels goes on the 5150 show, as you probably are aware. If you're not, I'm giving you the recap. On this show, they're having talks about a lot of things: politics, views, how one person perceives white America or white males versus another person. They're having this whole big discussion. Disrespect is flying all over the place. And at some point, it just kind of escalates. People are moving seats, two grown ass men in each other's faces. It results with Anton saying, "Hey, yo, we could just step outside and handle this." But nothing ever happens. Nobody fights. Nobody throws blows. Anton leaves the show. So that was the breakdown. So after that, y'all are probably aware Anton went on I don't know, a world tour of just appearing on different people's shows, just talking about the situation, talking about what would happen. Corey Holcomb stayed quiet. His 5150 show only airs once a week. He didn't say anything about it, but when his 5150 show came back on the air, if you were like me, I was like, oh, I got to watch this episode because I got to see what he says. And of course, Corey Holcomb's a comedian. Corey Holcomb's a comedian. So throwing jabs over social media is probably something that he's very, very, very good at. But Corey Holcomb does address it, and he says some comments related to Anton Daniels' wife. He says some comments related to Anton Daniels' daughter, and he puts a picture of Anton Daniels' daughter on the internet. He posts a picture. He has some jokes and some things he says about his daughter. So, as soon as I saw that, a lot of people probably was like, "Wow, that's crazy" or whatever. But when you get beef, when you are involved in beef, you don't determine how far the beef goes. The person you're beefing with determine how far the beef goes. But Corey Holcomb posted a picture of Anton's daughter, who I believe is 17, on the internet. He says some things about her. He says some things about Anton's wife. The next day, Anton is on his Millionaire Morning Show, which I check out occasionally, and he is pretty much describing how his daughter is going through emotional distress over this situation, how people in school was talking about his daughter, how he had to take his daughter out of school. His daughter is, I believe he says she runs track, and she is an Olympic hopeful, and now she's out of school. She was crying in the principal's office. So Anton essentially says, you know what, y'all got it. I didn't think wife and kids. I thought wife and kids were off limits. We aren't doing this. So Anton thought wife and kids were off limits, but like I just said, when you're in beef, you don't determine how far the beef goes and who it touches. The person you beefing with determines it. That's just kind of how it goes. And here we are. Anton made several comments about he was advised not to talk about it, or he only could say certain things about it, which leads me to believe, and a lot of other people to believe, is there a lawsuit possibly brewing? What legal actions, ramifications, if any, could Corey Holcomb be actually exposed to because he put a picture of a minor up? He said some things about her, whether you want to take them as jokes or not, or what have you. So we're going to break that down. Before we jump into it, in this video, this is it. We ain't doing no reactions to nothing else. This is it. But the comment I made about beef, you don't decide the parameters of the beef. God bless the dead. Before my brother passed away, my brother, he loved his niece and nephew. He would do anything for his niece and nephew. He would take them out all the time. He would do a lot of things with them all the time. He'd be like, "Hey man, I'm gonna take the kids. Hey, I get them. I'm gonna take them to the zoo." Loved his niece and nephew. He loved his family, period. But boy, don't nobody mess with his niece and nephew, because it would have ended up bad. I mean, hey, I've talked about it on the channel before. My brother was a good person, loved his family a lot, loved his niece and nephew. But we could say that, he kind of had one foot in the realm of legitimate ventures and maybe one foot in the realm of non-legitimate ventures. And it was funny because he used to actually spend the night over my house maybe one weekend a month so he could hang out with the kids and everything. And I always thought that was dope to do, so they could be close to their uncle. But as things evolved and, as I kind of stepped back and looked at the landscape, I actually had to I actually didn't let him come over to stay at my house as much. He would ask to take the kids out, and I was like, "Nah, brother. They can't roll with you. They can't roll with you." And the reason I bring up that story is because of this situation right here. I don't know what situations and or beefs my brother could have potentially had out there, but he doesn't get to decide how far an op can take some issue that they have with him. So why would I put my kids in harm's way if I know somebody is kind of out there living that lifestyle? I was like, nah, you know what? I got to make sure I take care of them. And nah, we're not going to do this. So again, I say that to say when you engage in beef and you think something is off limits, unfortunately or fortunately, or however you want to say it, however you want to look at it, you don't determine the parameters of how far somebody is willing to take it. That's what your opposition determines. If you think women and children and civilians are safe and they don't, you got to be ready for that game that you playing. So, I say that to say beef generally isn't a good thing. You should probably avoid it. It's probably not really a good thing when you have family and loved ones who you got to protect. You have a level of fame and notoriety. So let's talk about it. Corey Holcomb put a picture or image up of Anton's daughter, minor daughter, who is 17. He said some jokes about her. This happened in I don't know if I would call it the lovely state of California, but it happened in California. So this situation is involving Corey Holcomb and Anton Daniels. This incident occurred I think in Los Angeles, California. So this analysis is going to be tailored based on facts, California statute. So we aren't really overreaching. It's just based on facts. I'm not here to speculate or sensationalize things. I just want to go through what the potential for criminal exposures could be or could exist under California law, why they would likely fail to succeed, and then I'm going to pivot and do the same on an analysis for civil liability. And this is actually a lot. So posting someone's minor daughter online and then cracking jokes, ragging on them when you got 10,000 people in a live stream, probably hundreds of thousands of subscribers to your channel. The very first statute that could be implicated here, we're talking about implicated, but after I go through each statute, and I have 1, 2, 3. All right. 5 total, 3 criminal, I think 2 civil statutes I found that could be applicable. After I go through each one, I'm going to talk about the likelihood that it'll succeed. Well, one, if it's anything criminal, that's something that would have to be done by local law enforcement. So that would actually require like Anton to actually go down to the police precinct and issue some type of complaint about the action that happened. I don't think anything will rise to that level, but we're going to go through the 3 things that could be implicated. All right, criminal harassment, California Penal Code 653.2. This is the first statute that people usually point to in California, and it is indirect criminal harassment. What does that statute for criminal harassment requires? This one is probably the flimsiest, but posting personal identifiable information, PII, name, address, phone number, medical history, images to some degree, with the intent to cause harassment, fear, or unwanted contact, resulting in a credible threat to safety. So those are the 3 things that have to be proven in order for someone to be criminally culpable for this type of harassment. Posting personal identifiable information, or PII, with the intent to cause harassment, fear, or unwarranted contact, resulting in a credible threat to safety. Why is this so hard to prove? Generally, a photo alone without personal identifiers like an address, a phone number, a school, usually isn't enough to satisfy that element of the statute. Prosecutors must also prove intent to cause real world harm. And this is the kicker, and this is expressly articulated in statute and in case law. Mere insults, commentary, or online mockery, while ugly, is often not criminal. This is why most online conduct doesn't become a criminal case, because the bar is intentionally set to be high. So the likelihood very unlikely for this to succeed and move forward. And just as a matter of course, there's no way I can see Anton like going down to the police precinct complaining about it, but we just talking about what the exposure could be. All right. This one is, it sounds crazy. I can see how it could tie into this situation. Could be a possibility, not likely on none of these criminal ones, but we're going to talk about what potential exposure for these offenses are. Child endangerment, Penal Code 273A. Some people jump straight to child endangerment, but that is usually misplaced. In order for a child endangerment charge to stick, essentially a few things have to be proven. It has to be willful, intentional conduct, likely to produce great bodily harm or death. Online speech, even reckless speech, almost never meets this standard unless there's a direct and credible danger. So the likelihood of this is not viable. Now, DFD, what would be a situation where something like this would come into play? Doxing. Like, let's say, again, this is just a hypothetical so we can understand why certain things aren't going to be applicable or won't work. Let's say a picture of the minor child was posted, and this dude has hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and there's 20,000 people online, and he like, yeah, this kid whoop, 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 goes to this school in this area, and every time y'all see her, I want y'all to do or say this. Now you're probably moving more along the lines of intentional conduct, an intent to cause harm, fear, unwanted contact. Still probably not enough to move forward on child endangerment, but that would rise to a level of criminal harassment, which we didn't see in this case. All right. The I'll probably skip this one. We're gonna skip that one. We're gonna skip that one because that one is just not even applicable. So I'm not gonna even waste my breath talking about that. But from a criminal law standpoint, I just don't see any way that there's any exposure for Corey Holcomb. In order to rise to criminal harassment or anything that could be actionable in criminal law, there would have had to been a specific intentional attempt on him to guide his audience, his followers, his viewers to either harass or cause some type of harm or put this young lady in fear of harm. In addition, the intent element would be so heavy, it would literally have to be him saying something to the effect of, hey, I'm calling on all my supporters. If y'all in that area, pull up or something crazy like that. Now, hey, YouTubers do stupid stuff. YouTubers get shot all the time. We cover YouTube beef that results in YouTubers getting deleted, but definitely no criminal exposure. And even if there was, I just couldn't see Anton after all the shit that was going on between them and his subsequent interviews running to the police precinct. That would actually be wow. Now, this one is a little bit more interesting because we got to talk a little bit more about it. Civil liability, where the real risk is kind of how I outlined this section. Now, not applicable, could be applicable in some situations, not this situation. Invasion of privacy, public disclosure of private facts. Not applicable here because the only disclosure was an image, but let's just talk about it anyway. Invasion of privacy, public disclosure of private facts is a civil claim where you can get damages if some information about you that is private is disclosed to public. It has to be a public disclosure. That means you told more than one person. If you just told me some shit, some private stuff about you, doesn't ride twos. Have to be a public disclosure of a private fact that would be offensive to a reasonable person and is not of legitimate public concern. A child is not a public figure. It's just not a private fact. It was just an image. So there wasn't anything that was private. There wasn't anything that would be deemed as offensive to a reasonable person. Some of the issues that would come if that were in play is whether the child had any public presence, whether the disclosure served a legitimate public interest. Not an issue. Now, this one here, you let me know, how would you rule on this one? Because I'm a cover other two, then we'll get to the serious one. Uh, One is negligent infliction of emotional distress. It's a fallback claim. It's a duty of care. Do you have a duty to conduct yourself in a manner of a reasonable person? Did you breach that duty? And was there foreseeable harm? Negligent infliction of emotional distress. I didn't even know that was such a statute until I looked it up. But the one that I think there, okay, the one that has the most likelihood of exposure is a civil claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress. We talked about this before on the channel. Um, Intentional infliction of emotional distress. This is often the strongest civil claim when you have some type of matter of a disclosure or harassment or something like that. Because this one, criminal, you got to convince 12 people out of 12 that this crime actually happened. That's always hard. For intentional infliction of emotional distress, you only got to convince 7 people out of 12 that this actually occurred. And if proven or if found liable, the defendant in this case would be Corey Holcomb, would be liable for actual damages as well as punitive damages. Why do I think this is the route that they're going to? One, if Anton actually talked to an attorney and is getting advised, this is the only viable claim he has. Some of the comments I've seen from some of his shorter videos he posted, he talked about all the things you want to talk about when you're trying to reach that threshold of severe emotional distress. Had to pull her out of school, getting teased and harassed by her peers, was crying, had to go to counsel, loss of economic opportunities. She was training to be Olympic hopeful, and now that has potentially got derailed. So all of the things that Anton Daniels is saying related to the situation with his daughter specifically being brought up is yelling for an intentional infliction of emotional distress claim. All right, the elements in order to prove this is going to have to be extreme and outrageous conduct. Is going to have to be intentional or with reckless disregard. So, intent. What does intent mean from a legal standpoint? Knowledge with a substantial certainty. Let's say I want to pull a prank on somebody and I break one of the legs of a chair, and then I set the chair on the broken leg as if it's fixed, and then I sit back and watch. And somebody goes and sit down at a business meeting in that chair, fall, spill their coffee on them, and they just look ridiculous. And somebody gonna say, well, did he intend to do it? Well, yeah, I intend to do it, but the way they define it for legal purposes in a civil matter is knowledge to a substantial certainty. What I did with that broken chair, was it knowledge with a substantial certainty that this would cause some type of harm based on my conduct? If the answer is yes, intent is proven. But you can also prove intent not by proving that the act was intentional, but by proving that your conduct was done with reckless disregard. Well, I didn't intend for this girl to get harassed. In the case of what we're talking about now, I'm sure Corey Holcomb didn't intend for this girl to get harassed and be pulled out of school and all of this other stuff and be crying in tears. But when he posted that photo, when he was talking and making the comics about her, was it done with reckless disregard for the potential harm that could be done from that? So again, in order to prove intentional infliction of emotional distress, it has to be extreme and outrageous conduct. Do we think the posting of a minor child on a YouTube channel for purposes of beef is extreme or outrageous? That's going to be the question. To me, it's given outrageous. It's given ridiculous to me, but that's going to be the first question. Was what he did when he posted that photo and made the commentary about it, would the average person think it was extreme or outrageous? When it comes to children, I can't see one person saying that. How would you feel if your child was posted in that situation and came home crying and shit? So I think most people would probably say that the first element is met. It may not have been extreme, but it was a little outrageous to post a minor and talk shit about her like that on a YouTube channel with hundreds of thousands of subscribers and tens of thousands of people watching. Was it intentional? No, he probably didn't intend to cause the harm, but was the act done with reckless disregard for the harm that it could cause? I think that's easy. I think that's an absolute yes. And was there severe emotional distress? All we can go on is what Anton Daniels is actually saying. He pulled his daughter out of school. She was getting teased by her peers and classmates. She went to the principal's office crying. She's losing the opportunity to, one, finish her studies and run track, because he said that she was an Olympic hopeful. And two, he also mentioned that his wife was taking her to see a therapist, to see somebody to deal with it. So just based on that alone, I think it's patently obvious that that meets the definition of severe emotional distress. Courts are far more protective when the targets or collateral victims are a minor, as they should be. Was this conduct extreme, outrageous? Did he intend to cause the emotional distress, or did he have a reckless disregard for how his actions could have led to emotional distress? And was there, in fact, severe emotional distress? Like I said, courts are far more protective when the target or collateral victim is a minor. All right, public ridicule of a child can meet outrageous standard even if the speech is otherwise protected. So I don't know. I don't even want to talk about what he said about her. What he said about her was not a good thing to be saying about somebody's child, but hey, like I said, when you beef and you don't control the parameters, what's on, or what, you don't control the parameters of what's the valid target and what's a viable target and what isn't. But ridicule of a child, even if the speech is protected, just because it's a child, it can meet the outrageous standard even if the speech is otherwise protected. So the problem here is going to be, that's a claim that I think is legit. I think 100% that if what Anton Daniels is saying about the situation his daughter is facing is true, and I don't know why he would have a reason to lie, I think intentional infliction of emotional distress is a viable cause of action. Let's take a look real quick. I mean, yes, I agree. That's a good point. Shout out to you, Royster, for bringing that point up. When you do things, you put yourself out there as a public figure. But I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. I can't. Your point is 100% right. He did put himself out there as a public figure, and whether he started the beef or not, his actions either before, during, or after ultimately led to what happened. I know that got to be rough to deal with at home. Like, you making all this fucking money from YouTube, and now, your wife and daughter are catching strays just because of the conduct that you engaged in. I know that shit would have to suck, but he did put himself in a public forum. What's going on, Lisa? I appreciate you tuning in as well. What could the liability here be? What could the damage be? Real quick, they're going to look at actual damages. So actual damages, let me see. Because I'm not sure. I should have looked this up before. Let me see. What are I need to know. I had to look up a statute real quick. Okay. Oh, yeah, this is going to be interesting. So essentially what it's going to boil down to is actual damages. What are the actual damages that were lost here? I just don't think it's going to be a lot of actual damages here. Maybe time off. I mean, I don't know. I think Anton says his wife works for him dealing with properties and shit. So maybe some loss of income while they're taking the daughter back and forth to whether it's, therapy appointments or what have you. Not going to be a large, I just don't see large economic losses here because we're talking about a minor. The issue is going to be with the punitive damages. Punitive damages vary from state to state. Some states say you can only get 3 times the amount of actual damages. So if the actual dollar amount that was lost was $10,000, your punitive damages are capped at 3 times that, even though the jury may not be aware of that. The jury could award 100 million, but some states cap punitive damages at a certain multiplier over the actual damages. Punitive damage are to punish people for bad conduct. Actual damages is what you actually lost out of pocket. Other states like California, they have no fixed cap on punitive damages. California law does not impose a strict statutory limit on the amount of punitive damages that a jury can award. So let's do a hypothetical. Let's say you're on this jury. It's 2 ways a jury are going to look at this. Okay. I think the intentional infliction of emotional distress is probably easy to prove and probably the best cause of action that can be pursued against Corey Holcomb. That's just my breakdown. It is what it is. Actual damages, not a lot because it was a minor. I don't think there was a lot of money loss, but the emotional toll from how Anton describes it is going to be huge. If you were sitting at a jury and you're sitting on a jury and you hear this story and this story is being told and they say, okay, the defendant is found guilty or found liable for intentional infliction of emotional distress, civil actions. He is ordered to pay X amount of money for the actual monies lost. But what would you award as a juror for punitive damages for a content creator putting a minor child's image on the screen and pretty much, ragging and cracking jokes about her, whether it's her appearance or anything like that? As a adult, as a parent, as someone who's looking at this from sitting in a jury box, I don't know. Like me, I think that amount would probably be high as hell. I'm just saying $1. $1, I don't know. $1, I don't know. We don't want. I don't know. $1 for punitive damages is crazy. Nah, I think it'd be a little bit higher. I ain't gonna say like millions of dollars, but the question that I would ask, or if I'm on a jury, is this conduct that happened, no matter how ignorant it was that started it. Let's just say it was a little bit of ridiculousness and tomfoolery and ignorance on both sides. Let's just say both sides were ridiculous in how this beef started. No matter how the beef started, we're not talking about the beef. We're talking about this 17-year-old child who is solely the daughter of one of the persons involved in the dumb shit. Daughter of one of the persons involved, and her image is on TV. She catching strays. Now she's missing classes. Now she's in therapy. Now she's crying every day. Now she's getting teased by her classmates and neighbors. Now she can't sit in classes and actually do her classes. She may have to get homeschooled or could miss time in school that could impact her standing in school. Now she can't run track because she was a track star and a prospective Olympic hopeful. We know there's an economic value that go with that. You have this child who had nothing to do with it, but she was just born to one of the people who was involved in this dumb shit. And now all of those things they're suffering from. And as a parent, every day you see your daughter just kind of down. Your wife probably mad as fuck at you because your wife probably looking at it like, yo, this is like 98% your fault. Whether it was or wasn't at the time it happened on the show, as the content creator, your exposure, visibility, commentary is what resulted in your daughter being hard. So that's just how it's going to be perceived. I don't know. I think that would be justification for, I'm not saying hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I don't think most jurors would say that there should be no or very little punitive damages for that. We generally don't want, I don't know about y'all. Maybe y'all want it. Maybe you want it, Royster. I don't know. I generally don't want YouTubers putting people's kids on the screen and talking about them in a bad, negative, or derogatory way. I just think it's something that society as a whole is going to frown upon. Um, Anton doesn't get to pick and choose whether his children or wife is off limit because he's involved in the beef. But I think most people objectively looking from the outside would be like, damn, like wife and kids should be off limit if y'all having an internet beef. If y'all got real beef, y'all should do a celebrity boxing match. That should be fire, bro. I would actually pay to see that. A celebrity boxing match with Corey Holcomb versus Anton Daniels. I actually pay to see that shit. But I think that's pretty much it. I think the civil claim is the only thing that's viable. I think it's a strong likelihood Anton is saying all the right things. He clearly is talking to an attorney because everything he's saying his daughter is dealing with are all the prongs that's weighed when a court looks at was there severe emotional distress. Severe emotional distress means it was so bad pretty much where you actually had to talk to somebody like a professional, a therapist. If his daughter was just crying and then the next week she got over it, it doesn't rise to that level. But when you start saying pulling them out of school, uh crying every day, can't be around their peers, have to talk to a therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, now it reached that severe standpoint where it could be an issue. I don't know, man. This is actually ridiculous. Like I said, I've supported Corey Holcomb as a comedian by seeing this stuff live multiple times. I've I've watched Anton Daniels' YouTube channel. I was a member of his Patreon. What is his Patreon called? Bag Chasers for a brief while because I just wanted to see what it was about. That shit was expensive. $15 a month. $15 a month is a lot. $15 a month is a lot. But I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. I just wanted to jump in, not necessarily talk about the fight or the ignorant shit, but talk about the legal consequences that could come from Anton's daughter being essentially posted on Corey Holcomb's YouTube channel. And hey, shout out to Gemini and Chat GPT. I asked for an image of like Anton Daniels and Corey Holcomb for the thumbnail, and the image did Anton Daniels good. The image of Corey Holcomb is hilarious. I was like, what? But hey, it is what it is. These are fictional people, so that way nobody can say that you used my image incorrectly. Then I'd be doing a video about myself. We definitely don't want that. Yo, that's it for this video. I'm probably gonna jump on here tomorrow and probably the day after because I'm probably gonna be in the house because it's probably gonna be a shitload of snow and your boy not going anywhere. I got all my Instacart stuff done today, got all my snacks in the house, I got my movies lined up that I want to watch. So that's what it's gonna be for me. Y'all stay warm, y'all be safe, be blessed. I'll holler at y'all tomorrow. Y'all take care. Peace. Yes, dog. I know. I finished up just in time for you.